Now we definitely want to have those hips working correctly in the backswing and the downswing. We know that if we can get these hips to rotate freely, to really get in that great pro style hip rotation on the backswing and downswing, it's going to make things so much easier. But how do we actually do that? And that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts on how to actually move those hips and get those working great in your golf swing. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so how do we get the hips moving? There's 3 moves that we're going to focus on in this video that are really going to help. Number 1, we have to straighten and bend the legs in a certain way to get the hips to rotate. So as I set up here to dress, you'll notice that my knees have a slight flex in them. So if I go from the top of my hips here, if I look at my femur down to my knee and then down to my ankle, that has a flex in it. If I keep that flex the same, it's pretty tough to rotate my hips. There's going to have to be a little bit of a straightening of the right leg here. Not much, and that doesn't mean that I'm going to slide my legs and sway and do all kinds of things where I'm moving back and forth laterally. But I am going to have a little bit of a straightening in my right leg and the backswing. As I'm completing my backswing, I'm going to have a little bend, and then I'm going to have a straightening in my left leg. So let's go over that a little bit more in detail here. Let's go ahead and set up, and what I want you to do is just grab a club and put it across your hips. As you go into the backswing, I want to feel like you're pushing a little bit to straighten that right leg. You'll notice how this part goes up and back, and that rotates my hip in the backswing. As I do that, my left leg is coming forward slightly. Now in the downswing, I'm going to get a little bit of flex to get my knees wide and apart, and then I'm going to do the opposite. So my left leg is going to straighten as my right leg comes forward. So if I'm going toward the camera here, this will be my backswing, right leg straightens as my left leg bends. Start of the downswing, my legs separate and they both bend. And then as I come on through, now my left leg straightens. This would kind of be when I'm releasing the club, what we call our straight line release in the top speed golf system. That allows my left hip to come on around when I straighten this left leg up and the right knee comes forward. And as I go to the full finish, now I'm just coming all the way on around to where my belt buckle is facing the target. The momentum is going to carry me that way. And again, my left leg is nice and straight. So do a good 15 to 20 reps. I recommend putting the club on the ground, just grabbing with your shoulders. And I want you to focus on right leg straightening in the backswing, knees bending it to start the downswing, and then left leg straightening as you come to that good full finish. Again, we're going to go right leg straight, knees bent, left leg straight coming on through. Do a good 15 to 20 reps of that to really feel that motion as you're coming on around. That's going to help you to get the overall flow of what's happening. Once you've done that 15 to 20 reps, now take out the pausing. You just want to make that one fluid motion. So you kind of feel like there's a little bit of a down and then up as I'm swinging back and through. I'm loading into the ground and then coming up. So go back, loading, and then coming up there. So there's that kind of pivot action, right leg, left leg, right leg, left leg, as you're going back and through to really allow you to rotate. Knock out a good 15 or 20 of those without any pausing. Then go ahead and hit a few shots. If you go to the driving range, put that together with a golf ball to get those hips to pivot back and through. Okay, so piece number 2, we're just going to take it one step higher than that. We're going to go from the legs up to the hips. That's the part that we actually want to have rotate. Now, when that right leg straightens, if I put this club across my belt again, when that right leg straightens, you'll notice how in the backswing, my right hip gets a little higher than my left hip. Then as I start in the downswing, those are going to level out. So again, my knees bend, my knees are nice and wide here. I'm athletic, almost like I'm a shortstop playing in the baseball. And my hips are level. And then as I come on through, now my left hip is going to be higher than my right hip as we're looking from this down the line angle. Let me go ahead and turn toward the camera so you can see this a little bit better. Here's the backswing. Now my hips are tilted, my right hip is higher. There's my start of my downswing, legs apart, hips level. And as I come on through, left leg straightens, that pushes my left hip higher as I'm coming on through there. So you can imagine, that sounds complicated. That's one of the most simple things that can happen. I'm just having my hips kind of tilted forward and they're rotating in an arc or a plane. Kind of imagine a plane of glass here. They're rotating around those back and through. That's what's going to build a lot of consistency there. So again, let's do 15 or 20 reps, going pausing, right hip higher, hip square, left hip higher as you're coming on through to the finish. You can let the arms come on around. Once you've done a few of those, grab a club, do the exact same thing. Right hip, sink into the ground, left hip high. So we're going right hip high, sink into the ground, left hip high, and when you have that club, just make it all one fluid motion as you're coming on through there. Once you're comfortable with that, that's going to give you a lot of, again, it's going to feel like there's some kind of momentum to the swing, like it's a little bit effortless as those hips go back and through, and it's going to allow you to be nice and solid as you're hitting these golf shots. Okay, now finally, there's a couple cheats here that we have to test if you're struggling to get your hips to work like this. So you can see that I'm letting my hips rotate on through. Let's say, hey Clay, I'm a little bit tight. I'm getting a little bit up in age. I can't move like I used to. I really want something that feels like it's easier to make this happen. I got a couple tests here for you to perform. So first, let's take our right leg and just put it right out in front of you. Lock your knee, keep that straight, and then see how far you can rotate your right leg inward. So here's my toe straight ahead. I need to be able to rotate my right leg inward, and then also see how much you can rotate your right leg outward. What that's actually doing is it's testing in my pelvis here how much my femur can rotate in and out. Now it's very important in the golf swing, as I'm trying to rotate here and get this hip rotation on the backswing. If I can't internally rotate my right foot, so if my right foot can't turn in, then that's very difficult, or it's impossible to do when my foot is facing forward. So as I rotate my hips, essentially what's happening there is my foot is turning in relationship to my hips. So basically it's a complicated way of saying, see if you can turn your foot in. If you can't, then you need to go ahead and flare your right foot out at address. You just have to do that or you're not going to be able to rotate your hips. Same thing with your left foot. If I hold my left foot up, lock my left knee, can I turn my left foot in? If I can't, then I have to flare out my left foot as I'm setting up here so that when I turn on through, I can get these hips to rotate. It's not really, I mean, it's just your pure anatomy. If I cannot rotate that internally, I have to flare out my feet or my hips are not going to be able to rotate here. Now, if you're super flexible, you're Adam Scott or Tiger Woods or Rory McIlroy, and they can turn their foot any way they want to. Now I have options. I could set up with my feet square. I could set up with them open. Tons of hip mobility. You don't really have to worry about it. But make sure you take that test. If you can't rotate those feet, we need to flare them. That way that when we swing, the hips can actually work. Now we talked a lot in this video about how to get those hips to rotate both back and through. How do we sync that up with our upper body? And there's actually a really cool trick with this that I call the straight line release in our Top Speed Golf system. Now as we get our hips rotating, when do we have the lag in the golf club and when do we release that lag? Well, it's pretty cool because everything in the golf swing releases at about 45 degrees in front. So as my hips start to rotate on through, they're going to get to that 45 degrees open first. And then after that, my shoulders are going to get to where they're 45 degrees open toward that same point again. And then my arms are finally going to release, and then the club is going to release after that. So the very first time my club, if I grip down on this club, splits my forearms and completely releases is that 45 in front. So if my hips, my shoulders, my arms, my club, everything gets to releasing at that 45 in front, the golf ball just gets in the way. And I have an awesome bonus video that's going to go over just that. It's going to explain that in some good detail. If you want to see that, just click the card. I'll play a preview of it here in a second. Click the card that pops up on your screen or the link down below in the description. You can start getting that straight line release so that you can pair up what you learned here today with your hips, with what your arms are doing, and play some fantastic golf. A common misconception I see is that we want to create lag and we just want to hold that lag all the way on through contact and get as much lag as we can coming through contact, and that's simply not true. In the release section, we're going to talk about how to turn that lag into energy, how to turn that into speed so that you can hit it very far and do it, like we mentioned, without hardly any effort at all. And as we're coming through contact, we're going to fully release this angle as we're about 45 past contact. So if I draw, a 45-degree angle, I should be looking at both arms, nice and straight, the club splitting those arms, so that by releasing the club, by getting this angle to release as we're coming through contact, that's what's going to create the speed. Our hands are moving a very short distance, our club is moving a very long distance through contact, and it creates that whip-like effect. Very different swings hitting the exact same position. So first let's take a look at Dustin Johnson, releasing the club 45 past. And the reason we're going to see such different swings producing similar positions is that this is the real physics of how this has to happen. Here we're looking at Sergio Garcia. Again, we're going to see tons